Let me begin by asking you a question. How many times have you sinned because you were too weak to resist? I know that if you are a normal person, you must have lost track of the number a long time ago, or most probably, you don't even bother to keep track of it anymore. But what really blows my mind is how could a little 11-year-old girl like St. Maria Goretti confront a much stronger temptation than most of us could have ever passed through and resist so heroically? You see, she had a secret to practice virtue, and that is what I'm going to reveal to you in this video. Maria was born the third of 7 children to a farm laborer, Luigi, and his devout wife, Assunta. Luigi and Assunta were married in their hometown of Corinaldo on the eastern side of Italy. They had a small plot of land where they started their life together and readily welcomed children. The farming was hard work, but they owned the land, and what is important is that they were united. Maria and her siblings helped in the field and with the duties of the house. Everyone had a place, and everyone had a responsibility, as it should be in any well-ordered Catholic family. Many things can motivate a person or a family. For the Goretti family, it was a strong devotion to Jesus Christ and His Blessed Mother. From this piety, the family sought to live a simple life in God. I've heard that not too long ago, if you traveled from Rome to Nettuno, the village where Maria died, you would hear everyone along the way speaking of Maria Goretti. Throughout that countryside, she has become legendary. The older people remember her, the young have learned to love her. But what did this simple, uneducated, and poor village girl do to be cherished and loved by not only the Italians, but by the young and old from all over the world? Where did her inner strength and virtue come from? To discover this marvelous secret, we need to go back to Corinaldo, where everything began. Maria's story begins with her home, where the moral basis of her heroic choice was nurtured. Her mother, Assunta, was an orphan who had never learned to read or write. Maria's father, Luigi, upon finishing his military duty, returned to his hometown of Corinaldo, married Assunta, and began to farm for a living. This couple had little to sustain them other than their love for God and our Blessed Mother and each other, the 3 ingredients for a successful marriage. What a beautiful example for financially backward modern-day Christian couples. Although Assunta had never been to school for any formal lessons, she learned from the church how to love God and transmit this great love by words and actions to her family. Luigi, her husband, also had a deep love and devotion to God. Rather than feel bitter about their poverty and way of life, this valiant couple accepted everything as God's will and greeted the birth of each of their children as a great gift from God. What blessed days were those when even poor Catholic couples were open to life. The norm of the day was to have big families, and what happy families they were. Unfortunately, in today's world, children are considered to be a burden and not a blessing anymore. Getting back to the Goretti family, the lesson of true love or charity was imparted to each child. After the sad demise of their firstborn son as an infant, Luigi and Assunta had another boy, and on October 16, 1890, a girl was born. And in Thanksgiving, the child was named Maria, after our Blessed Mother, and Teresa, after the great Carmelite saint. She was baptized the day after her birth. This was not because of any danger of death, but simply because Maria's mother had such a great hatred of original sin that she wished to lose no time in freeing her child from it at the first possible moment. This is the same reason why our Blessed Mother rushed to meet her cousin Saint Elizabeth, who was 6 months pregnant, so that she could cleanse John the Baptist from original sin. I personally feel that the early baptism of Maria was a very important factor which gave her an excellent start in life. Assunta and Luigi ensured that Maria and her brother were also confirmed according to the custom of the time. As the Church teaches us that the sacrament of confirmation, when received in the state of grace, transforms you into a soldier of Christ. This is another very important sacrament which we only receive once in our lifetime. And it prepared Maria not only for all the hardships of daily life, but above all, for all the great moral and spiritual battles that lay ahead of her. Returning to this Holy Family from Corinaldo, soon the family grew to 4 children. And the poverty that had never been absent became much more intense. Now in Corinaldo, the family had a small house, a plot of land. Although Luigi managed the land well, it was simply not large enough to raise sufficient supply of food. The family had few possessions, and a small image of Our Lady was considered their greatest treasure. The children, they had no toys, so an apple or rock often took the place of a ball that other children might play with. Maria never had a single doll. Incredible. Can you believe that? Because of their poverty, the children never went to school. But in spite of this type of ascetic life, the entire family was happy. Until the food shortages became so critical that something had to be done. Luigi and Assunta loved their small home in this beautiful part of Italy. But to better their fortune, they decided to become tenant farmers in a different part of the country. They realized that the needs of the children might be better met by this move. As Luigi explained it, we must not think of ourselves, but they, the children, are gifts from the good God, and we must show our gratitude by taking care of them. And what about Maria? At the tender age of 6, her father credited her mother with having taught her to be obedient, to pray well, and to love God and His Blessed Mother. Like other 6-year-old children, she played, running through the grass, picking flowers, laughing and smiling. Her mother tells us that even by this age, Maria seemed to have an understanding beyond her years. She was very obedient, and rather than waiting to be asked to help, she begged to be allowed this privilege. She enjoyed playing, but most often she played with her younger brothers to amuse them and keep them from troubling their mother. Cheerfulness is one thing that all who knew her mentioned when giving testimony for her beatification. The golden key in our little Maria's life was that she loved virtue and hated vice and sin. Her preparation for the spiritual and even physical combat in her final years began from her earliest days. For most people, including you and me, the story of Maria Goretti is already familiar as a story of a young girl who refused to give in to a grave sin against chastity. However, I don't think you realize the extent of the torments that she had to go through way before the final dramatic refusal. The canonization of Maria Goretti was not based on a single moment's struggle against sin, but upon her practice of heroic virtue throughout her entire short life. They say that Rome was not built in a day. And in the same way, most saints don't become saints overnight. For us children of Adam, conceived in original sin and burdened with sins committed as we grow up, virtue and sanctity requires a daily effort and a struggle. And it was no different in the case of Maria. What fortified Maria's soul was the daily family rosary, as well as personal prayer, through which she drew very close to our Lord, through His Blessed Mother, or the Madonna as the Italians affectionately call her. Perhaps you could be comparing yourself with Maria and thinking, at this very moment. What about me? I've been unfaithful to the graces that God has given me since my childhood or youth. Perhaps you could be in your early 20s, 30s, 40s, or even in your late 70s or beyond. And you've come to the grim realization that you've failed to make any remote preparation to resist the temptations that you have to regularly face. Now, wait a minute, and don't make any rash judgments or condemn yourselves. Well, if this description fits you, then let me assure you there is no need to panic or to despair. Help is closer than you could have ever imagined. As long as we cling to our Blessed Mother, she will see us through every trial, temptation, and tribulation, no matter how grim or desperate the situation may seem. Consecrate yourself without further delay to Jesus Christ through His Most Holy Mother, according to the method of St. Louis de Montfort. You may tell me, but brother, I've already consecrated myself to our Blessed Mother. Well, maybe you consecrated yourself many years ago. Take advantage to renew your consecration then. I would recommend renewing your consecration at least once a year. And this will open the floodgates of new graces, which will help you to face all the storms of life with faith, hope, and courage, just as the Goretti family bravely did. If you've never consecrated yourself to Our Lady, or if you want to renew your consecration, simply click the link provided below right now to join in for the next consecration batch. Don't postpone or delay, because otherwise the devil will have the final say. Now, back to the Goretti family. When Maria was 8, the family moved to the Pontine Marshes in Nettuno. Although much of this land has now been reclaimed through reforms, in Maria's days, it was one of the most terrible parts of Italy. Because of the swamps, diseases were uncontrollable, especially those diseases carried by mosquitoes. And even the air was said to be unhealthy. How would the Goretti family, and especially our little Maria, adapt to their new surroundings? Did their lives improve as they had expected? Meanwhile, the neighboring village of Conca, something extremely important would take place very soon. This would be the decisive factor of Maria's fidelity and heroic resistance. Oh no, there goes the bell for the next community activity. Sorry folks, I've got to wind up now. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, Salve Maria.